A good day, Dr. Katerere. Thank you for joining us as part of our knowledge series. We are glad to have you.
Thank you. It's a great honor to be here.
We've been hearing so much about this African continent, the cannabis industry, and how Africa is playing a great role in development of the global cannabis industry and its support to Europe. Um, we wanted to have you here as you being the subject matter expert in the industry.
Thank you very much, Yogesh, and it's great to be here. I'm David Katerere, and I'm a professor of pharmaceutical science at Tshwane University of Technology, and also co-director of the TUT CSIR Cannabis Research Hub. I'm also chair of a TUT research platform. And therefore, we've taken the view that Africa has all the necessary ingredients to become a leader within cannabis and hemp, both for the pharmaceutical industry and also for wellness and nutraceutical markets. And I think that's when we started talking to stakeholders, convening stakeholders, and also really having this view around how can we build the value chain around this industry, this sunrise industry.
When you say Africa, you mean South Africa is leading the effort in spreading the technology, spreading the expertise around cultivation, extraction, and then, or is it just Southern African region?
Yeah, well, at the moment, it's mostly Southern Africa which is leading in terms of legalizing and
Hmm.
recognizing the potential of this sector. For instance, I
Hmm.
was in Ghana. Ghana pops up, but their legislation is still a little bit behind. So at the moment, it's 6 countries, mostly in Eastern Africa and Southern Africa. So
Okay.
Rwanda is a new kid on the block. Uganda,
Hmm.
but countries in the region. So when you look at Lesotho, that was the first country actually in Africa to legalize the growing of medical cannabis and also hemp.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
have over 149 licenses. So this goes back to 2016, 2017.
Hmm.
And then South Africa has come on board. Zimbabwe has about 50, 60 licenses on the medical cannabis side, and then Malawi. And I think increasingly hemp is also then becoming
Hmm. Hmm.
central focus, just because
Hmm.
it's much cheaper to get into hemp growing than
Hmm.
it is to get into medical cannabis. But
Hmm.
our view is that both medical cannabis and hemp
Hmm.
have a lot of potential
Hmm.
within health and wellness.
So these 6 countries, Doc, they're leading the effort. And as the legalization is happening, as I understand, it's not just the medicinal, it is medicinal, recreational, nutraceutical, and the hemp industry growing at the same time. And holding a promise for the hemp industry where it's not just, say, the likes of THC or CBD on the medicinal side, but the industry is also moving towards, say, using hemp as a fiber for
Yes.
construction, fabric, any uses that you have seen have attracted your eye and you think Africa holds a potential to export on a larger scale or build a big domestic market which is circular in nature?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because Africa, and it's not a country, right? It's 54, 55 countries, but very
Yes.
agricultural. We have a lot of sort of, peasant or smallholder farmers, and then we have commercial farmers. So if you look at Southern Africa, for instance, lots of big commercial farming going on, especially around the tobacco industry,
Hmm.
cotton as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And these are things where cannabis and hemp might be able to slot in. I think
Hmm.
that recreational cannabis or adult use is
Hmm.
really minor in the sense that it's only being spoken about in South Africa. The other
Hmm.
countries are looking at cannabis and hemp really
Hmm.
as regulated industries,
Hmm.
and sources of medicine or industrial products.
Hmm.
I think the potential would be number one for medicinal products. So
Mhm.
already we have a problem with cancer, and we know
Mhm.
that a lot of compounds out of cannabis are useful for pain. I think there are
Mhm.
lots of clinical trials that have validated that use. So that's the one side. The other side is nutrition,
Mhm.
right? Whether it's feed or food. And we
Mhm.
know that we do need good nutrition. So once
Mhm.
we've extracted the oils, which could be used for cosmetic purposes, they could be
Mhm.
used for health and wellness products or other formulations, we still have
Mhm.
that biomass, which
Mhm.
is rich in, omega oils. It's also very rich in protein. So actually, that's the beauty for us of doing CO2 extractions, to say that you
Mhm.
actually end up with quite a lot of products that you can
Mhm.
then feed into various value chains and food chains.
So the recent focus, as you mentioned, Doc, is on the nutraceutical industry,
Mm.
the hemp industry, and the medicinal industry in solving real ailments. When you speak
Yeah,
of real ailments, I think you have a very strong background in pharmaceutical science, research and development as part of Shawnee University and as
yeah,
part of CSIR.
yeah.
Help us understand how some of these ailments or the real problems that the country holds can be solved with the use of the plant.
Well, yeah. So my background is actually natural products. So cannabis is just but one of many natural products, right? That could come out of Africa
Hmm.
or around the world. And
Hmm.
increasingly, there is a sort of back to nature movement. So once every 20, 30 years, once every generation, we have this back to nature movement that happens.
I really like
Uh,
that name, Back
yeah.
to Nature movement. Okay.
Yeah, and also, the pharmaceutical industry increasingly thinking, okay, what can we go back and be able to find out of natural products? So I think
Hmm.
that's also then influencing what is happening in the cannabis space. For
Hmm.
instance, a lot of chemicals that can be isolated out of cannabis could be used as backbones for active pharmaceutical ingredients, things like epiodelex. We
Hmm.
know that there's semi-synthesis that can be done on CBD,
Hmm.
just the chemical structure of T or THC chemical structures. So that's the one
Uh-huh.
side where the pharmaceutical industry is looking at cannabis as a source of, um, if you like, chemical uh, compounds that
Uh-huh.
it can then
Hmm.
modify on. But then there's
Okay.
this space where people would like to use things that are validated by science and
Hmm.
are useful, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
evidence-based herbal medicines. And I think
Correct.
a lot of these products that come out of cannabis are
Hmm.
finding fruitful ground in that space. There are lots of clinical trials,
Uh-huh.
that are
Hmm.
ongoing, have been done around
Hmm.
cannabis. For instance, we
Hmm.
talked about pain, so neurological pain. That's actually very important, and there are studies to back the use of THC or even CBD, spinal cord injuries,
Hmm.
traumatic brain injury and stroke. So sort of a lot of neural, um, if you like, or diseases that originate from the central nervous system, right?
Yep.
We know
Yep.
that cannabis has been used, and there are pharmaceutical products which have actually come from there. And then of
Hmm.
course, elements of nutrition. So
Hmm.
uh, protein nutrition, undernutrition with protein is a big thing in Africa. And so if we're
Hmm.
able to find sources of which are rich in proteins, such
Hmm.
as hemp, for instance, and hemp seed, then
Hmm.
that solves the sustainable development goal number 2, which is zero
Hmm.
hunger, which is
Hmm.
what we are all moving towards.
This is amazing, Doc. I think you speak of the whole gamut versus saying, so one side are these pharma companies where we have these clinical trials for allopathy drugs that are being approved.
Hmm.
The other end of the spectrum in Africa is the strong use of traditional medicine,
Yes.
where cannabis has already been used for thousands of years, and that those ideas and that science has been revived with the legalization wave. And third is the nutritional value, where you are
Hmm.
saying sustainable goal of no hunger. So this
Yeah.
one plant, as we see Africa moving in all these three directions at the same time, and governments are starting to understand the benefits, and at the same time there are early adopters, researchers, and then there are followers who believe in this and are adopting cannabis as a resolution to problems. What is your take on entrepreneurs that are trying to enter this big value chain? What would be your advice on and opportunities for innovation along the whole value chain? I see it's really wide. It has
Yes,
it
it
has
is.
it has a whole spectrum of medicinal, nutraceutical, traditional medicine, hemp,
Mm.
circular economy.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
then
what's your one
the
piece of advice to
yeah.
the entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, and that's what I say to people. People would sometimes jump in with 2 feet, and and there's an African proverb that says, "You do not measure the depth of a river by
Uh-huh.
jumping in with both feet." Right? Yeah, because otherwise you drown, and so we see quite a lot of drownings, if you like. So I
Uh-huh.
think for
Uh-huh.
entrepreneurs, it's for them to understand, number one, the value chain itself,
Mhm.
right? And then
Mhm.
to be able to say, using their expertise and their knowledge,
Mhm.
where should they be sitting along that value chain? Because they can't
Mhm.
be everywhere. What I
Mhm.
do get is a lot of people who say, I have a piece of land and I want to start growing cannabis,
Mhm.
but so what type of cannabis are you growing to start off with? Is
Mhm.
it the low value, uh, large volume hemp, or is it medical cannabis? Now, if
Mhm.
you go into medical cannabis, that's like going into the pharmaceutical industry. So
Mhm.
it's not just now about the land, it's also about the expertise that you will need,
Mhm.
understanding GMP, the whole infrastructure around that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So what
Mhm.
we've done from our side is to look at that value chain and say, okay, where can we intervene? Where's the most pain for entrepreneurs? And what we
Mhm.
found was that extraction, that part of extraction, or in cannabis, they would call it manufacturing, is
Mhm.
really the part where entrepreneurs are going to battle, because the
Mhm.
instruments
Mhm.
are not cheap. The instruments
Mhm.
are also high tech. So
Mhm.
apart from just having the instrument, you also need systems around that instrument. Like uh, good manufacturing practices, quality management. You need skilled labor
Mhm.
for operating the instruments. And
Mhm.
so that's
Mhm.
where we sit, and what we then do is to offer toll manufacturing services or contract manufacturing
Mhm.
services to entrepreneurs, to take the
Absolutely.
pain away from their work, so they can concentrate on what they know. If they are good at marketing, let them concentrate on marketing the product that comes through. So they would
Mhm.
collaborate with farmers, right?
Mhm.
And then the farmers are good at farming, let them farm. Then they bring biomass to us, we extract the biomass, and those that are good at formulating, let them formulate. Those that are
Mhm.
good at cosmetics, let them do the cosmetics.
Mhm.
And those that are good at selling, let them sell, so that we all collaborate with our expertise across the whole value chain.
This totally makes sense, dog, and thanks for the wise knowledge on this. What I understand is for entrepreneurs to figure out their core capabilities as to
Yes.
what they bring to the table, and then do a product market fit. Right,
Yes.
just jumping into the river, as the proverb says, with both feet in. And a lot of these lessons that we've learned from the Cannabis 1.0 wave is a lot of companies did not survive the storm. I mean, post COVID,
Mm.
we've seen a lot of these companies that went belly up because there was over leverage, there was over borrowing, and they were trying to control the value chain.
Yeah.
And I think, based on your advice, if young entrepreneurs can lead the way in Africa by figuring out their capabilities and finding a fit and do a litmus test before jumping into the river and
Yeah,
see
and
further
and
results.
yeah, and in Africa we also talk even of regional value chains. So somebody
Okay.
sitting in Malawi could potentially be working with us,
Okay.
and then could be working further with someone maybe sitting in Zimbabwe, So
Okay.
grow in Malawi, extract in South Africa, sell to the region, sell in Zimbabwe. And that's actually part of what we try to do so we have, as you know, this webinar series where we try and bring people from the region to be discussing the potential ways of collaborating and working together. Yeah.
I know you referred to the hub. Tell us more about the innovation hub at the CSIR in Pretoria. What led you to this effort, the first in the country? What is the kind of research activities that you would like to share with us, please?
Yeah, I guess not just the first in the country, actually, the first in the continent.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, it was this analysis of the value chain, learning lessons from Cannabis 1.0, and then saying, okay, um, as researchers, how can we de-risk? How can we de-risk entrepreneurs? Yeah,
Hmm.
and then we come to this realization that we have this sort of network capital, and
Hmm.
then we also have all this, the knowledge to be able to actually get this going, and therefore we then looked around and said, how can we set up a pilot manufacturing facility which would be
Hmm.
open to entrepreneurs, but also part
Hmm.
of the time that it's doing research, and therefore we invested in a CO2 instrument.
Hmm.
We looked around for CO2 instruments of the nature that we wanted, and then we fortunately, I think, uh, Buffalo Extraction Systems were
Hmm.
shortlisted. We then did our due diligence, and in the end we settled for an instrument from yourselves, which we then installed. And I must say to you that the commissioning, so it took a long time to procure, but once it got to the country, we also learned a lot of lessons, right? And we're quite happy with your engineers flying in, helping us to set up and training our personnel. And this is now the sixth month that we're running, and we have over
Okay.
20 customers, coming through to us, mainly in the cannabis and hemp space, but
Hmm.
increasingly also other people in the natural product space. Because I don't know if you know this, but Southern Africa is actually a hotspot for endemic species that don't grow anywhere else in the world. So it's the third most diverse hotspot for biodiversity.
Hmm.
So this really opens up things. So beyond cannabis, there are lots of
Hmm.
things that we can do, and also with cannabis, lots of
Hmm.
formulations that we'll be able
That
to
we do.
put together. So that's then opens up the research that we are planning to do.
Hmm.
We've got a really nice team that we are building. We've got recently arrived from India, Dr. Manikanda. He brings 5-6 years of experience
Actually.
from that part of the world, and I think with our own African experience, we expect magic to happen. Yeah.
We're glad to hear
Yeah.
that. Glad to hear
Yeah.
that, Doc. But Doc,
Mm.
as I understand, so this is an innovation hub situated in Pretoria in a
Yes.
partnership with Shona University and the CSIR.
Yeah.
And the innovation hub, the cannabis innovation hub, strives to support entrepreneurs throughout the value chain from a medicinal cannabis standpoint, and not just on say product development, but also help them on the side of cultivation consulting,
Mhm.
any kind of land races they want to explore, any kind of extractions they want to delve into, and any new products that they want to introduce in South Africa.
Yes.
Are these all the activities? And would you like to share any products that have come out of the Innovation Hub? That I know you have NDAs and stuff, but anything that you would like to share that how it's
Yeah.
leading the effort and how new products are being introduced?
Okay. I think the one thing that you left out is just regulatory support. so things
Regulatory
like
support as well.
yeah, which would be advice on how do you actually register products in the region, as
Okay.
pharmaceutical products, or as sort of herbal wellness products. So that's one of the
Okay.
other things. And increasingly, through partnerships, we are also then talking about it's just the business support side of things. When you're wanting to get into this business, how do you actually, using design thinking, how do you focus on a particular product, and then of course the infrastructure, what are the kind of pillars that you need for that infrastructure. Yeah, from the work that we've done, so like I said, it's been 6 months, so it's still early, but what we've managed to do is to show people that it's possible. A lot of
Hmm.
growers here in Southern Africa have just been exporting this gold unprocessed, right? So you don't get much value out of it. So people are sending flour, abroad. And what we've done is to say to them, come through and see that actually you can process it and add value to it. We
Hmm.
we also have a few product lines in the making. For instance, some shampoos, that are at, if you like, prototype level. I always think that it's better to look at, especially from a regulatory perspective, to start off with topical products that don't
Hmm.
really make any medical claims.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we've got some shampoos that we are in the process of formulating. We've Since 2018, the university has actually got a nutritional drink, a
Hmm.
nutraceutical. It's called Nicelo.
Okay.
There's also a website
Misero.
to it. Yeah,
Okay.
and so we are looking at how we can maybe incorporate some of these biomasses or oils into Nicelo. So the
Hmm.
interesting thing about Nicelo, and I was talking to a medical colleague who came into the office just now,
Hmm.
is that people have been using it for convalescence. So in when you're undergoing chemotherapy in
Hmm.
cancer, you can't keep stuff down. You also don't eat a lot of solid foods. So we had
Yeah.
one patient, for instance, who was taking Nicelo,
Hmm.
to sort of regain their energy and their weight, on the one side, and then taking cannabis oil to keep the food down,
Oh
so
wow.
as yeah to stop nausea. Yeah, so out of that we are saying, but you can then have a combo, right? We can
Hmm.
actually formulate Nicelo with cannabis
Hmm.
extract in it,
Hmm.
and that should then be able to serve those two purposes. And obviously we will have the science to back it up.
Okay. Okay. So this is like real world problems that we are creating products that are helping people from a medicinal industry standpoint, and they are going out there. Entrepreneurs are coming in, being supported before they do the launch, and we have all the expertise that we offer as part of the CSIR consortium at the Cannabis Hub.
Yes.
Cool.
So apart
That's
from
amazing,
that,
Doc.
yeah. So look, we do want that. Africa needs that. The world needs that.
Hmm.
But apart from that, the TUTCSR hub at the moment is also incubating. I think about 12 entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Most of them using cannabis in their products.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
those are funded by the government, actually. Yeah.
So, so these entrepreneurs that are being funded are funded. The research and the product development is funded by the government.
Yes, it is. The South
So
African
they,
government. Yeah.
oh wow, this is amazing. So is there like a vetting process? So if we have entrepreneurs after this call who would like to apply, is there a vetting process? They write to you, they write to the CSIR, and then they can be inducted as part of the program.
Yes, so there was a call.
Uh-huh.
I think it was early in last year, so around September, October, and then
Hmm.
they had to apply, and then had to go through that process of being shortlisted and then coming in. So maybe in hopefully another 6 months or so, we can also maybe bring them through to a webinar to just talk about their experiences, and then we can track them to see what progress you're making.
That's amazing, though. Kudos to you and the team and this whole effort. This just sounds fantastic. We've never come across such a hub that is empowering people as part of and creating an industry at the same point. Speaking of that, Doc, creating jobs, like how can the hub or activities help create jobs in the region? And is there any training that we are doing as part of this? I would like your thoughts on that.
Yes, so we are putting together training. We have actually been doing training around regulation of and product manufacture around cannabis. So this is a program. It's called uh, manufacture and
Hmm.
registration of herbal
Hmm.
and cannabis products in Africa. So
Okay.
so we run that program through one of the universities and also through Pharma Connect. And what we then do is it's a virtual program, so people can
Hmm.
join from anywhere. They will
Hmm.
learn around about GMP. They will also
Hmm.
learn about product registration, using
Hmm.
CTD dossiers. And then,
Hmm.
of course, they would learn about the chemistry of natural products and the
Hmm.
chemistry of cannabis. So that's the one bit of
Of
training
course.
that's there. Then we have sort of more hands-on training that we are
Hmm.
working towards. Last year, we kind of piloted training, a one-day kind of, you know, um, training around extraction techniques, right?
Wow.
But
Okay.
now what we are doing is we are now trying to broaden that again into a course, because one of the
Hmm.
problems that we find is we don't, so we're growing this industry, but this industry will need engineers,
Hmm.
right? Because where you have
Hmm.
moving parts, you need engineers. So actually that course will be for extractors and pharmaceutical engineers.
Hmm.
So even the entrepreneurs need to know, the
Hmm.
extraction processes to understand quality. And then
Hmm.
we would then be training young people who are interested in pharmaceutical engineers. How do you open the machine, how do you service it, how do you clean it, because that's very important. Because I think one of the shortfalls of dealing with Africa is obviously that we buy these expensive instruments, and then after a year or two they are broken because we don't have a maintenance plan or even people that maintain the instruments. So one of the lessons that we learn is that we actually need to grow a cohort of engineers which
Hmm.
resides on the African soil and is able to quite easily travel around, and then help with that.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's just amazing, Doc. And I think in tandem with your back to nature, sustainable goal three, no hunger,
Yeah.
you are creating an industry, empowering entrepreneurs. We are creating jobs, providing training, and at the same time, we are trying to create a support system for the industry that we are creating. This is just amazing, and I think the kind of leaders we need in the cannabis industry are like yourself, who are not just capitalist in nature, but we help grow the industry and empower people as the industry moves forward. What, Doc, are some of challenges that the industry faces? What are top challenges that you think the industry is facing in the region?
Well, I think the challenge is, and these have been highlighted by the way. So now we're also part of the Federation of in Industrial Hemp Associations, organizations, FIHA, and we were having this discussion not so long ago. So part of it is public perception. So particularly being able to separate the bad things of cannabis,
Okay.
with
Okay.
the good things. So when you
Hmm.
say cannabis, everybody thinks it's getting high,
Hmm. Correct.
so we do need to have sort of good marketing around that to talk about actually it's a good medicine, right? It's
Hmm.
a good food.
Hmm.
It can also make 101 products.
Hmm.
So that's a one thing. And then of course tied with that is legislation,
Hmm.
policies around this. The policy making is very frustrating
Hmm.
in terms of the policies that are made, because again sometimes it's made by people who are not as knowledgeable in the industry as they should be. So working
Hmm.
together with policymakers is very important, and
Hmm.
that's also one of the things that we try to do. with the webinar series. We try to bring in policymakers, even with the
Hmm.
training and conferences.
Hmm.
We want to bring in policymakers so that they know that their policies have consequences, but that their
Hmm.
policies should be uh, technically sound, should
Hmm.
be aimed at protecting the public, but they should also be business friendly.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
those things, and then of course high barriers to entry in general for a
Hmm.
lot of entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
If you look at licensing, that can
It's
be a
quite
barrier.
expensive.
Yeah. So in
And in South Africa,
Zimbabwe,
as I see.
yeah. So in Zimbabwe, the medicinal license is about $62,000.
Okay.
In
Wow.
Lesotho, it's about 500,000 rand.
Okay.
In For hemp in Zimbabwe, it's $400. In South Africa, it's about 1,000 rand. So it's a bit,
Hmm.
quite cheap. But then the infrastructure that you need around that is also quite expensive. To start up medicinal cannabis in South Africa today, on average, you're spending 30 million rand,
Hmm.
which is probably about $2 million, or
And
one
this is
million
just the
euro.
licensing. And then there
Yeah,
is the capex around setting up the
yeah,
industry,
that's it.
hiring,
Yeah,
infrastructure, the build,
yeah,
equipment, if
mm,
any.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
that's quite high for Africa. Like, I mean, this I see as high barriers to entry. I see policy as an issue. Any other challenges that you feel
Well,
as part
then
of
we
the export market? How about compliance? I mean, I see that compliance, we've seen a lot of issues around um, pe- people entering the value chain without getting the GACP compliance, say for cultivation, or the GMP compliance for extraction or for post processing. Is this been a challenge for Africa as well?
Not quite. I think Africans are very law abiding,
Okay.
especially when you're looking at exports, right?
Hmm.
Because you don't want to send something off and then it gets rejected. It's
Hmm.
really quite painful. But skills. So skills are the big thing. That we
Okay.
don't have enough skills. So if you look across the whole value chain. So master growers, on the
Hmm.
agro side, we don't have
Hmm.
very good skills. We have a shortage actually. And
Hmm.
then when you look at manufacturing or extraction, like we talked about, just the
Hmm.
chemistry side of things, and then of course the engineering side of things, and then you look at business skills. We've
Hmm.
got one or two entrepreneurs that we are working with, and we are saying to them, let's start very basic. Look at
Hmm.
business model canvas.
Hmm.
We have design thinking training that we are doing.
Hmm.
Let's look at the product. Who's the customer for this product?
Hmm.
So there's quite a large sort of deficiency of skills, but that also
Hmm.
creates opportunities, right?
Absolutely.
Because yeah, we have a young population, very eager to learn. So done
Hmm.
correctly, we could actually get these people trained to global standards, and
Hmm.
then they can start to execute. And I think that would be the really important bit.
Yeah, no, and as you speak of skill development, Doc, this is as part of the exercise that you are doing as well. When you speak of the courses, do we have support? Is this just the private sector, or do we have governmental support for training programs around cannabis?
Yeah, so it's a sunrise industry, and I think eventually we need to move towards a point where government comes in, even the universities, from a more formal training perspective. At the
Okay,
moment, the training that we do from the university side is not formal
okay,
training, or with credentials. It's
okay.
And sometimes it's actually the better type of training because it's competence-based training. Nobody's going
Uh-huh.
to be
Uh-huh.
waving around a piece of paper to say, I have this certificate, but they're going to be really good at what they do. And in a sense, that's what we want them to be able to do.
So soon, as soon as I hear, we will have courses in universities as part of cannabis science, and
Yeah.
we'll be formal courses, and you foresee that very soon in universities around the world.
Yeah, but look, cannabis is what? Cannabis is agriculture, crop
Another crop.
science. Yeah,
Hmm.
cannabis is chemistry. It's analytical
Hmm.
chemistry.
Hmm.
Cannabis is, a design. It's engineering. So I'm not sure if
Hmm.
we can have a course that says, cannabis on it. What we need
Hmm.
is we need to train people on competencies that they can then use. in agriculture, crop science, or
Hmm.
in analytical chemistry.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But
Absolutely. So,
yeah, things that make them employable.
mhm. So it's the whole gamut of jobs, as I understand, and thank you for putting that through. Is we have analytical chemists, we have technicians, then we have the growers, the extractors, and all kinds of jobs that will be created once this exercise takes over. This is amazing, Doc, and we were glad to hear about these efforts from you, coming firsthand from the expert. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us today.
And that's the vision. So we need more people to be in the vision,
Mhm.
for us to carry it forward. So thank you very much. It's been a great honor. And I am honored that we can work together, because I think that you have the
Absolutely.
same vision that we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.